That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, that don't sound right, send us a comment. You're one of us. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, my experience, and it's been a few years since I've received one, but there would be an email from an unknown address, and it said, "Hi, I'm such and such. I'm a Nigerian prince. I need."
Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, a podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts, Peter Billman.
Hey, and I'm Cecil Davis.
Hey, we're just trying to have a conversation here without using Google, without fact-checking it. And we've brought in our favorite listener number one. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So time flies, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
Yeah, podcast time. Some folks at work asked me about how we record these and when we record these.
Right.
First, I said I can't give away my secrets, but I did lead them on to that. Podcasting time is a bit of a time warp because you just don't know where you are in time sometimes when you're recording an episode.
Right.
But here we are. But this is actually a small follow-up to last week's episode. At last week's episode, we were just casually mentioning getting emails from our listeners. And we do really like the emails. Scott, you're one of our favorite senders of emails. We like getting emails from you. tdsrpodcast at gmail.com is our email address. You could also reach us on our website, thatdon'tsoundright.com. You can scroll to the bottom, place to leave a message or make contact with us. But I did point out that I didn't want any emails if you're a Nigerian prince.
So did you get one from a Nigerian prince?
I did not get one from a Nigerian prince, but do you understand the reference to the Nigerian?
I do.
Would you like to share that with the listeners?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, my experience, and it's been a few years since I've received one, but there would be an email from an unknown address, and it said, "Hi, I'm such and such. I'm a Nigerian prince. I need to I need some place to put a bunch of money."
Okay.
And I need to. There was some turmoil in the country in Nigeria, and I needed to a safe place in the U.S. to store my money. Can I get your bank account? I'll store my money there for a while. I'll give you, a healthy, 5-digit or 6-digit.
Give you a cut of it.
Just for the time and for your help.
Right.
And then asking me for my, bank account number.
Your account number.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's basically, is that it?
Yeah. So, and the one that I've seen now is switched. The one I've gotten most recently is the Christian old lady whose husband just recently died and left her with a large estate, and she wants to give it to someone to use on behalf of the church, and she has found me.
There you go.
And she wants to give this to me, but she can't give it to me unless I can secure a deposit. So I have to send her like $2,500 in order.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I thought that was,
that's
especially for the millions of dollars I'll be getting
For the Christian
community. Yeah. So
It seems like a risk worth taking.
it does.
So the question is, why a Nigerian prince? What's the deal with
I
that?
don't know.
Why would they
was
use
that the scam?
Why would they use the character of a Nigerian prince?
I always thought it was a little out there. I never understood why they didn't give us something that maybe seemed a little more plausible.
Right.
Oh, I think it's because we don't know anything about Nigerian princes. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it sounds...
On the realm of possibility?
Well, it's romantic. It sounds like, I want to be a part of this. Yeah, I don't know.
Are you leading us down the primrose path here?
I listened to another podcast where they're talking about why the Nigerian prince scam works. But this is really one of the reasons it works is that it's so outlandish that only the most gullible person will fall for it. And that is the exact person you want to be engaging with to take their money.
Okay.
Because you are working on this edge of spectrum of the most gullible of population, And so you go after something that's very, very unusual and very, very outlandish.
I see.
And it brings, and that essentially it creates a filter for you. You immediately have that population now in your grasp because they've responded to you. And so you could try to figure out if the pharmacist is going to fall for it, or the packaging specialist is going to fall for it, or if the engineer is going to fall for it, or if the psychologist is going to fall for it.
Right.
You just don't know. And it doesn't matter. If you've got the fringe of the pharmacist, the packaging specialist, the engineer who falls for this, you don't care what they are. You don't care their intelligence. You don't care about their education. You just know they
believe.
You've got them. They believe. And that's one of the reasons why the Nigerian prince. Now, did you know there's a Nigerian prince in Winston-Salem?
Really?
Well,
Is it really?
I hate to say
Salem
this.
City?
He was.
Yeah.
He just recently passed away.
Oh.
So I just got this in the newspaper, and I'm not going to read the guy's name,
Right.
but and I'll pass the obituary to you. But we had a real life Nigerian prince living in our town. He just recently passed away. He began his earthly journey in Lagos, Nigeria, and he was the son of a prince, and as a result, he is also a prince, and he is part of a particular ruling family in a particular state in Nigeria.
I wonder if I ever got an email from him.
I'll give you here's his obituary. I mean, this is
Who knew?
well, that's the thing. I just was blown. My mind was blown.
Yeah.
That we had a Nigerian prince, a legitimate Nigerian prince here in Winston-Salem.
Living near us.
Yes, that's right.
Which, the most interesting thing I find about this is on a Thursday, you were reading the obituaries in the local paper.
I always read the obituaries first.
So here's the thing. Yeah, I didn't read it. My wife read it. She reads the newspaper. This was a that don't sound right movement actually between my wife and I when we were engaged. I probably have told this story. I tell many people this story. We were when we were engaged to be married, we started kind of writing down lists of things we think the other person should know about us that also would be surprised. And that's kind of the original that don't sound right. That someone would write this down.
I would like to see that list.
And so one of the things that she wrote down that didn't sound right, that she wanted a newspaper
Okay.
Every day.
delivered to her house
Yep.
every day. And so to this day, we still get the local newspaper delivered to our house every day. And her morning routine is to go out there, get that newspaper, bring it in and read it. And of course, yes, she does go through the obituaries. And there's the Nigerian prince.
Wow.
Now, my question is, will the scams continue?
Oh, because he's passed.
Here's the thing. So I was a newspaper guy. I used to be in the newspaper business. I always wanted to have the newspaper. But
You were in the newspaper business?
Wait, what'd you do?
I was into the production side.
No
I
kidding.
worked for. I started with my high school newspaper as became an editor, and then I was worked for the local paper. Did a little bit of writing, but and for a weekly paper. But then I got into the printing side and went to work for USA Today in the production side.
Okay.
But I've always liked.
For USA Today?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I lived in Michigan and Boston,
Okay,
and that's where I met my wife. Anyway, so I've always been a big fan of the newspapers. I had a roommate in Boston actually who claimed that I would get the Boston Globe and just wrap myself in it every Sunday. It was all over the place when I was done with it. So, but after a few years of papers not being read because life got busy, we just went to the Sunday only.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many times I'll be in a waiting room, pick up the paper, get to the obituaries, and see somebody I know.
Really?
Yeah, it's just it's like
Here in town?
yeah,
You'll pick up today's
it just
random appointment.
It seems like a higher percentage than it should be of knowing somebody in the obituary.
Well,
That
it could be
is-
our age, too.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
So I actually have rules that I've given to Christy, or requests, not rules. Requests for how my obituary. There's two things I want for my obituary.
All right.
One is I want a recent picture.
I don't want one from high school.
I don't want one from high school or a glamour shot.
With you got all the hair flowing.
And if you're new to the podcast, you can go to our website, thatdon'tsoundright.com, and you can see a picture of Cecil in high school.
Picture? No,
This is a high school picture.
Yeah.
This would not qualify for the obituary.
Yeah, that's would not qualify
because there's lots of things about this picture that don't look right.
There was somebody here the other day in the house, and they saw a picture of me with hair, and they were like, it threw them off for me because they had never seen me with hair. But people from high school and college that were listening to the podcast, if there are any, never saw me without hair.
All right, that's right, that's right.
So, yeah, it has to be a recent picture.
Okay.
And I want my cause of death, regardless of what it is.
You want it listed?
It will listed, yeah, even if it is something just embarrassing even.
Because that's what everybody wants to know.
That's what everybody wants to know. Yeah. I'm always trying to decide. Like, I'm reading, I'm like, it'll say something about the Cancer Institute. I'm like, oh, well, it must have been cancer. Or,
Yeah.
I want my recent picture and the reason clearly spelled out. I mean, even if I pull a refrigerator over on top of myself trying to get ice cream out or something.
He's suffocated under a vending machine.
Yeah, right. Got my arm stuck in a vending machine.
Hit by a Mack truck on I-40
trying to get a strap. Yeah. Regardless of what it is, I want the reason spelled out implicitly.
It's good that you shared that with your listeners and us, because we'll if we should be unfortunate enough to be around, and when your demise comes, we'll see that happens.
Well, this is all your master plan for being remembered.
For being remembered?
Yeah, it is. You want to have a memorable obituary.
Well, it doesn't.
Just like your grandfather set up the Stump Pullers Club, and we're still talking about it. In 40 years, 50 years, people will still be talking about your obituary because it was explicit.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to be very explicit and with a recent picture. So
okay.
But you're saying about being wrapped up in the newspaper. I actually have a newspaper story.
Oh.
So I was on an airplane.
Let's do our words of wisdom while we're talking about Nigerian scams.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson I think I've really had to put ingrained in my brain, because I'm probably close to that edge of the gullible side. I really am. I mean, I remember when email first came out, and there was a rich scam that says, look, if you forward this email to enough people, Microsoft will keep is tracking it. And if you forward it enough people, you'll get a cash reward. Yeah. And I fell for it. Yeah. I totally fell for it.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. I totally fell for it. Huh. And this is when I first got my email.
CompuServe or
AOL or Alta Vista or something like that. Okay. But the words of wisdom, and this is also for the kids out there, if it's too good to be true, it is. Not it probably is. Yeah. If it's too good to be true, it is. Right. So that's my words of wisdom.
Right. So you fell for the early scams on the...
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they can be pretty engaging. The ones that I thought were pretty effective were when you would get the email that says, hey, this is your nephew, I'm overseas, something's happened and I need money.
Oh, okay.
And they would get it, and it would be like very urgent. And I saw somebody at a workplace one time. They got an email from the CEO that said they needed to go and buy a certain number of gift cards and send them the numbers.
Gift cards.
The gift cards, yeah. And it was realistic enough, and they were a new employee, so they didn't know that this wasn't happening. And they went and started to do it before somebody called them and told them it was that they were being scammed. Yeah. So it can be. I didn't realize that you would that was your thing.
True confessions on That Don't Sound Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've
got to go now. I didn't know this was going to turn into True Confessions.
That's all right. We're keeping it light. Remember, we're keeping it light.
Yeah. The scam I thought of that I thought was very effective is during football season. You get we'll do an easy number. You get 100 people, and you send on the before the game. You send the 100 people the outcome of the game, and so 50 you say Team A wins, and 50 you say Team B wins.
Okay.
And so when Team A wins that week, you discard your 50 that you sent Team B to. So now the 50 that you sent the Team A to think that you
Know something.
So now the next week, you split them again in 25 and 25, and you write the same people again and say, this week, Team A is going to win, and Team B is going to win. So when Team A wins, when Team A wins, this 25, they've now predicted 2 games correctly.
Yeah.
But they don't know that you put a certain people on Team B.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you've got 25 people, you've predicted 2 games. So now you split them again, 12 and 13. You go to the third week of games. Before the game, you say to 12, this team's going to win. To the other 13, this team's going to win.
But they don't know who they're being told.
Right. They don't need to be told. Well, no, they know who you're telling them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, after 3 weeks, you've got 12 people that you've predicted.
And they think, wow, he's been right.
You've been right, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's when you say, okay, you send me $1,000 and I will tell you who's going to win this week's game. Yeah, I was like, man, that is ingenious. That's just that's just,
1,000.
If you start with
if you start with 10,000, and you do that and you predict 3 games and you end up with a pool of 20,000 people that are thinking, oh man, this guy, and then you have enough gullible people in that pool.
Yeah.
So don't try this at home.
We
do not condone this.
To pick up Scott's new thing, do not try that at home.
This is Scott's helpful safety.
I think some people went to prison and served time for that particular scam.
Exactly. I'm not a lawyer, but I did stay at home.
Yeah, but that was ingenious. I mean, it's just math.
Yeah, no,
I would
great.
never have thought to do that. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have been thinking to do that.
No,
but, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I want to go back to your newspaper thing, though. I had a newspaper story for you.
Yeah.
So you're talking about being wrapped up in the paper. I was on the airplane one time, and there was an attractive woman about 4 rows behind me, and I just happened to turn around. I had gotten on the plane. I had my paper, I had my coffee, or whatever, and so I turned around, and she is staring at me. And so I'm like, that's interesting. So I read my paper, I'm drinking my coffee, and later I look back and she's still staring at me. And so the plane lands and I get up and I turn around and she's still staring at me. And I was like, wow, this is really pretty interesting. And so she continues to stare at me as I get off the plane. I get off the plane, I throw my paper away, throw my cup away, go to the bathroom, and my face is covered in newspaper black. Where I had been drinking coffee and my hands were a little bit damp, and I was reading the paper, and I had just got newspaper black across my forehead, down both cheeks, and across my chin. It was quite impressive.
So now the question is, what was she really staring at? And what was she thinking?
I know exactly what she was staring at. And I know exactly what she was thinking. It was like, good gracious. Have you never read a paper before?
For USA Today, and one of they spent a lot of money trying to figure out how to make the newspaper reading experience more pleasant.
Yeah.
And part of that was the quick drying inks that did not give you that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, they really tested that, and you had a very stringent testing of every load that came in. Huh. So, yeah.
I'll have to think back now if I've ever gotten, smeared my face with
I'm not
USA
saying
Today.
it doesn't happen, because I would leave at the end of the night's run with ink on me for sure. Yeah. But the idea was it was less. I think in the old days it was a big problem. I remember hearing stories of people, butlers ironing the newspapers before they give them to the master of the house. Yeah, really to help dry them out.
I was a paper boy.
Oh, were you?
I delivered our evening paper in our neighborhood of 50 homes. And yes, I came home every night with my hands black.
Isn't it interesting? There used to be like a morning paper and an evening, because we used to have an evening paper in Raleigh too.
Yeah,
the Raleigh Telegram. Yeah, so we had the News Observer in the morning and the Raleigh Telegram at night.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they thought was going to happen between those intervening 12 hours. But.
So I think in Winston-Salem in the old days there was the Journal and the Sentinel.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
And I was before my time, but
was the Sentinel the second?
I think it was the evening paper, but I'm not sure. But I think they had sometime merged, and then So
well, I guess if you don't have like now we have 24-hour news cycle, but back then that was how you got your news, and if something
Right.
happened during the day,
Yeah.
They would pick it
Well,
up
or
again.
if it happened too late in the evening before, it would not make the morning paper.
So some communities only had a morning or an evening paper. Like I would go to spend a week with my aunt and uncle in the summers, and they would only get an evening paper, but they got it every day.
Huh.
And I had to wait till after both, my uncle was done with it before I could look at the cartoons.
So my dad grew up with a lot of brothers and sisters, and they would have to tear the cartoons up and pass them around. So they would tear the strips, and then they would pass them around so that everybody could be reading it at the same time. Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Well, it does not sound right, but you've come to the end of another That Don't Sound Right.
Hey, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. If you've never listened before, we want to thank you for trying us out. Hopefully it didn't last too long. That's our goal. But also, for those of you listening for a while, we thank you for joining us and getting it. Scott, you get it. You get what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thanks a lot. And if this is your first time and enjoyed the conversation, and if it wasn't too long for you, would you consider hitting the subscribe button or the check mark on Apple Podcasts? Also, consider giving us a rating and leaving us a review.
And if you're looking again for that last minute at this point gift for your loved one,
Valentine's
for
Day.
Valentine's Day, visit the That Don't Sound Right merchandise page available in the links.
You can show your love with a shirt, a hat, a pint glass, or a coffee mug that features the words, "That don't sound right."
You can give that to your loved one and say, "That don't sound right."
That's not a boring dozen roses
That's true.
or box of chocolates.
It may not be the best Valentine's Day message, but still,
I would love a shirt that says "That don't sound right."
Now, we all would.
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we mentioned last week, you actually got a custom message for That Don't Sound Right.
So I'm on I got an email from some group, and I opened it up, and there was a bright pink "That Don't Sound Right" T-shirt.
Was it Emily's logo, the That Don't Sound Right logo, or did it just say?
No, it was that. Yeah,
Really?
It was authentic.
Oh, wow. Maybe.
Maybe our distributor,
Maybe our
is
distributor
sending
did that.
out emails
Oh, that's,
to those that have been on the purchase list before.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
So, anyways, if you get a chance, go to That Don't Sound Right merchandise. And if you've noticed that the show notes have become higher quality, it's because we're using AI to write them. All right, That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSR Podcast in conjunction with Camel City Studios. I am your co-host and sound engineer, Cecil Davis, your other co-host. And web designer is Peter Billman, and sitting in chair number 3 tonight is Scott.
Hey.
Emily is our graphic designer. Giorgio is our merchandise tester. Brent is our brand ambassador, and he is a great brand ambassador. And as always, listener number 1 is Scott. So until next Saturday night, keep talking.
And stay curious.